Welcome back, everybody. Thanks to everybody that voted. I just wanted to do a quick set update. I'm kind of surprised people voted for 1948 Bowman, so here you go. Here's 1948 Bowman. I am up to 17 cards, which is just over a third of the set. The set is 48 cards in total. Here are all 17 present right now. The only one I have that's encased in any sort of way and authenticated is the Enos Slaughter up in the corner. These cards are obviously known by their size, also being black and white photos, not having names on the front. There's also some other things about the set that I wanted to kind of just jump into real quick. There's a really great podcast that was just released this week on Golden Age of Cardboard, which is Mike Monahan's podcast. So I don't need to like reiterate anything that was kind of talked about in the show. This is going to just maybe be some things in addition to it. Just want to point out just a couple players on here before I go, and these are the Hall of Famers here. So up here, the Ralph Kiner. This is the Hall of Famer for the Pirates at this point. Then we have Johnny Mize in his New York Giants uniform, and I mentioned earlier Enos Slaughter. There's still a lot of cards that I'm missing of Hall of Famers in this set. So the set is 48 cards total, and some people are critical of the set because of a couple different things. One being that some people just don't like the design itself, like the black and white photos. For me, that's like, okay, this was the first set that was released in any mass quantities really right after the end of the Second World War. So it must have been pretty exciting, I think, as a kid to be able to get these cards in your hands again and being able to see these players that you hear about on the radio and in the newspaper, and maybe even go to games depending on where you were and what city you lived in. So this must have been kind of exciting, I think, for the release, even though more exciting looking cards were to come even in the very next year. But I think these probably were pretty well received at the time they came out. I know, in hindsight, there's sometimes they don't get the appreciation that I think they probably had once they were released, and probably were kind of tossed aside in some ways in many collectors' minds until people kind of come back and revisit these things to kind of look at some of the simplistic beauty, I think, of these, including the portraits they have here with the black and white photographs. I think are just pretty solid and pretty telling of the time. There wasn't a lot of character in their images, but also they weren't being asked to show a lot of their character when they were taking these photographs, which is kind of, the stoicism was kind of characteristic of photography at that time. That changed a lot as we kind of moved into the 50s, and obviously into the 60s and 70s. It was a very different ball game when people were posing for their baseball card pictures. So I know the criticism of Bowman is that they kind of didn't do a good enough job putting together a comprehensive set. And there's a reason to believe that. There are teams that are missing from this set completely. The Red Sox are not in here. The White Sox are not in here. The Cubs are not in here. The Senators are not in here. The Browns are not in here. And the Tigers are not in here. So you have some entire baseball cities, including Chicago, which had two teams, that have no representation in the set, which I think is one thing that kind of stands out to me. As a Sox fan, I would like to have had like a Luke Appling card in here because he was still playing. This was near the end of his career. It would have been really nice to have that card. And then obviously because of that, you're missing some of the great players from that time, including like Ted Williams, because there's no Red Sox represented. Some teams that were represented, and you're kind of missing big names. Obviously Jackie Robinson's at the top of the list, and Joe DiMaggio is right after it. DiMaggio wasn't really on a lot of cards after the war, just in general in major releases, and he had a Leaf card the very next year, but you just don't see him then afterwards. There's the Leaf card, and that's like his big major issue card after the war, except for like Burke Ross, which were, I think, maybe not officially licensed products that were kind of released, but there's opportunities to be able to pick up DiMaggio cards through those products. So that's kind of something that's of note. I don't have any of the big rookies that are in here. Obviously the big three being Berra, Musial, and Spawn. At some point I'd like to be able to maybe pick up one this year. So that's kind of it. And for me, I think the best looking card in the set is one I don't have yet, and I'd like to be able to pick it up. I think it's one where you actually see maybe a little bit of the personality kind of come out, and he's completing, it looks like he's throwing, so he's completing his pitching motion, but there's kind of a smile, I think, that's kind of on him, at least the way that I kind of interpret that picture, and that's the Bob Feller card. I would love to be able to pick up that card, and actually that one kind of sells right up there with like the Bear rookie, and also sometimes above and beyond even the Spawn rookie, because I think probably of his popularity. He obviously was the most popular pitcher of that particular time in baseball. I know that sometimes he gets kind of lost in history as you get into the 50s because you have other great pitchers that are starting their careers, and his arm was starting to get kind of winding down and getting dead towards that part of his career. But, baseball fans were excited to see him back, excited to go see him pitch during the 1940s, just after the war. So that's one I want to be able to get in my collection at some point soon. and kind of add it in. So hope you guys enjoyed this. I'll keep you guys updated. Maybe I'll do another poll in the future to kind of see if you want to do updates, hear updates on the other 3 sets that I'm working on. But thanks for voting. Have a great day.